everybody, I'm Leisha. Thanks for being here. Today I'm going to share a little bit about how I began this journey into redesigning my life with permaculture. And it all starts with observation. So if you think about it, we have been learning through observation for our entire existence. When we were born, we learned how to walk, we learned how to talk, we learned how to communicate through facial expressions, we learned how to communicate affection, and we learned all of this through observation. We observed our caretakers, we observed the world around us. And since then, we've been learning by observation all of our lives. So it makes sense that the beginning of this learning journey would be observation. In permaculture, observation comes hand in hand with an appraising eye. If we're designing a garden, we're going to go to the space where the garden is to be, and we're going to observe the space with an appraising eye. We're going to identify what the resources of the space are. We're going to identify how the ecosystem of the space works. So even before you've planted anything, there is already some kind of ecosystem happening there, even if it's a patio. So if we were designing a permaculture garden, the first thing that we would do is observe the space. We would go and look at where you intended your garden to be, whether it was a small patio or acreage of land. And we would look for where the resources were. We would look for where water runs off of any structures that exist. We're going to look for how the winds travel through. We're going to look for where the sun comes in and where the shady parts are. And after observing the garden space itself, then we will start our design process. If I know I have a shady corner over here, then it makes sense in my design to design something that shade would serve. And likewise, if I had a very sunny spot, it wouldn't be a good place to plant sensitive plants that can't handle direct sun. So I'm going to need to plan for that spot. So it becomes us working with nature instead of against it. Against it would look more like going into a space, paying no attention to how any of the elements moved through it, how any of the resources presented themselves, and just decide that I want an English garden even though I live in Texas. You would probably not have a lot of luck with that, and you would end up with more problems to solve. And permaculture is a solutions-based design system. So working with nature, we respect the shade, we respect the sun, we respect the place where the water pools when it rains. We know that that's not a good place to put a plant that couldn't stand to have its roots wet. And so with nature, with what is already there, we work the design through. I took those same lenses and turned them on myself. I'm going to make a side note here. I have had years of really wonderful trauma-informed therapy, and it has helped me grow immensely. But there were certain things about myself that I continued to see as flaws. And because I identified them that way, it was having a detrimental effect on my mental health, which then, of course, flows into every other area of your life. When I studied permaculture, and especially when I started to think of myself as an ecosystem, and my life is a garden, and my mind is a garden, moreover, I was able to stop seeing things about me, my resources, for example, the way the elements flow through my space, instead of seeing myself as a flaw, I was able to see it without judgment. For example, one of the things I noticed as I was tracking my time for about 2 weeks, walking around with this notepad, writing down from the time I woke up everything I did, attempting to write down everything that I did, so that I could really see not only where my time was going and how much time things took, but also where my energy levels spiked in the day, where I seemed to get more done, where my energy waned. I wanted to observe that the same way I would observe how the sun moves through a space or how the winds move through a space. So it made it nearly impossible for me to judge myself for it when I looked at it as my energy flow, just like the energy flow in a garden. So, using the garden metaphor a little further, one of the things that happened that was unexpected during my observation process was that I became aware of some lifelong patterns of behavior, because patterns are another thing that we look for in design, and nature's patterns specifically. I recognized some patterns in myself that led me to talk to my doctor about these observations I was having. And that led to my doctor giving me some tests, and that all led to me being diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 50. Now, you might wonder why I would want that, or why I would need that diagnosis, or where I'm going with this. So I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. Getting that diagnosis was very much like getting a soil test back if I were doing this in the garden. It let me know what I needed to add to my environment to help me make the most of my resources, optimize my productivity, and be healthier in general, in a holistic way. Because just like with a soil test, if I found out that what my soil needs is more nitrogen, then I know what to do. And if I don't know what to do, I have resources. I can go places and find out what to do to add nitrogen to my garden. Same is true if we find out we have a physical deficiency of some kind, right? Vitamin D deficient. There are supplements for that. You can solve that problem so that it doesn't become a bigger problem down the road. For me, getting the ADHD diagnosis helped me know or find out, get curious about what I needed so that I could get the things done that I hadn't been able to, so that I knew what to add so that I wouldn't get caught up in some of the more, I'm just going to say, the less desirable attributes of ADHD, like analysis paralysis, for example, where you stay stuck thinking about something so long that you're exhausted. You feel like you've actually done the thing. Maybe you feel like you've done it over and over again, but you haven't. It's all been in your mind. And truth be told, this channel was in analysis paralysis for a very long time. So part of the observation process was finding out how my brain works so that I could work with it and not against it, because this is my nature. So now that we've covered that, as we're making observations and we're looking to nature for guidance, that leads us to think like a whole system, right? So it's not just, what am I doing with my time? It's, when I am engaging in this activity and I feel the best and I'm getting the most done, what are the variables around that? Is it that it's right after lunch or right before lunch or in the morning before I've eaten anything, or is it after yoga, or whatever it is? It was important for me to figure out what my own energetic cycle was during the day, because it wasn't this. And no matter how many times I wanted it to be, I'll wake up early in the morning, full of energy, I'm gonna hit the day head on, just running, and I'm just gonna work all the way until 6, and then I'm gonna have dinner. And I have never been a morning person, and what that means for me is, while I do wake up early, I don't enjoy waking up early. I don't wake up with a lot of energy. I wake up feeling tired. My energy comes in right around 10 a.m. I am raring to go at 10 a.m. Now, one of the things I learned through my little self-tracking experiment was that if I chose to engage in more mundane activities during my peak energy hours, like I said, between 10 and 2 are really my good focus and high energy hours. If I chose to do something like household chores during that time, I would often regret it, because by the time I was done with the chores and ready to start on something like planning a video or making jewelry or practicing playing my bass guitar or writing, I would not have the focus by that point. I'd be a little bit tired, a little bit probably understimulated, maybe I'm a little hungry, or then I'm right after dinner, I'm tired because I ate. And anyway, all of these things go into how I had to learn to work with myself. And so by tracking how my energy flowed during the day, I was able to then start to design my day in such a way to support the activities that I really needed focus for and that I prioritized, which was another thing I didn't know how to do. But I'll talk about that in another video. The key thing here is that when we engage in any kind of change, including life redesign, we may, some of us feel like we just want to take radical action. That's why I chose this t-shirt. I'm a fan of radical action, but I am learning to make slow, small changes, because I have fallen on my face more times than I care to recount because of a want for radical change. It doesn't work well in nature. It tends to destroy, and it tends to set back. And it doesn't work in our human nature either. We're not separate from nature. Our ecosystem here is a reflection of the ecosystem out there. And I'll talk about zones in future videos as well, but to start with this video, Zone 00 is your internal world. It's here. And that is where really the work that will ultimately ripple out and change our families, our loved ones, our communities, and the world, they start with us. They start at Zone 00 and they go out from there. And that is why, even in a time where we're facing a lot of challenges, it is still important to slow down, observe, and then make slow, small changes so that we don't accidentally cause more problems than we started with, and especially not for ourselves. Because if each of us were cultivating our own inner joy and inner peace, we would see it reflected more around us. That's just the way it is. If everyone, let's say, if everyone in their cars on the road had a sense of wholeness, had a sense of belonging, had a sense of self-acceptance, had a sense of self-understanding, I think we would probably all get along better, because we wouldn't try to work our feelings of anxiety, scarcity, fear, inferiority, insecurity. We wouldn't be letting those drive. We would be driving it from a place of health and wholeness. So I feel like this work is really important. And as important as it is to be regenerative in the world and in, physically planting trees and having green spaces, it is equally important that we are regenerative with ourselves, that we don't tap ourselves to the point of being completely drained, that there's nothing there for us. We need to be regenerative. We need to be sustainable. And it starts with observation. It starts with getting to know you, getting to know yourself. So another piece of the observation puzzle, besides taking the notes about what I was doing with my time, was getting really clear about my desires. Now, I don't know about you, but my history, my personal history, was not one where my desires were of any importance, really. And so I actually thought for a long time that it wasn't necessary to have desires, and that maybe even having desires made you a more difficult person somehow. I do not believe that at all now. I want to make that very clear. This was an old, demented belief that it was somehow wrong to have desires. It's human to have desires. In fact, I would say it's beyond humans. My cats have desires. They let me know regularly. So it's a thing to have desires. But when I had to sit down and really think about it, what are my desires? I realized I had a lot of fear about even saying what I wanted. Fear that if I made it be known that somehow the forces would work against me or something. That's of course not the case. I didn't feel that way thinking about what plants I desired, what I desired to grow, what seeds I desired when planting my garden. That didn't feel bad, to desire to grow tomatoes. But to desire to one day own a home somehow felt, I don't know, not, I guess not in alignment for me then. Now it does. Hence the life redesign. So I know I've rambled a lot about how this, well, that's the point of the channel though, right? Is for me to share my thoughts and observations about this. So the tools that I used that were the most helpful to me and that I recommend for everyone are a notepad that you can carry around or keep with you at your desk or wherever you go. Or if not a notepad, record into your phone if you can. Not everybody wants to be talking into their phone, but we have lots of options now. But find a way to track yourself. If time is one of the things that you're curious about in how you engage with it, or if you feel like you don't have enough of it, or like like the timing of things isn't right, anything like that. And also a journal for your desires, a dream journal, but not the kind where you're writing down what happened while you were sleeping. I have one of those too. But what your dreams are, what you want. Doesn't matter how old you are. And I have repeatedly written my dreams down here for days. 5 desires, rather, not dreams. I've written 5 desires every day. And of course they repeat, but I do notice that I word things a little differently every day, and it shows me that there are things that, elements of each desire that matter more on certain days, or that are more prevalent in my mind on certain days. And also how over time, as I've been working on this and having more experiences, some of my desires have changed. They've either become a little more honed and detailed, or they have become a little less limited, if that makes sense. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you learned a little bit about the process of observation, of self-observation. I'll certainly be elaborating more on this in future videos because it's all connected. This is not a linear process. It's a spiral, which is another one of nature's beautiful patterns. So we'll always be revisiting it. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate all the support that I've been given since launching my first video. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who subscribed, who liked, who shared. I really appreciate it so much. And it feels like I have community here already, which is such an important piece of my ecosystem. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who's done those things. And I hope to see you here next week, where I will share more about my journey through redesigning my life with permaculture. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe and like, share, and I'll be back next week with more. Thanks. Bye-bye.